What's going on, 12-2? We are back with another athlete call, and today we have the honor of having Payton Hinkle on with us, and she is going to tell us about her story. We have some questions that she's going to answer, and I'm just excited and honored to have her on. We've had so many athletes on the past couple months, and I've just been highly encouraged and motivated by everything that they've all shared. This morning, I was reading, got a message from a friend about the impact of iron sharpening iron. It's biblical and it's one believer sharpening another believer, one person sharpening another person, encouraging them to go out and do something, hey, that they maybe don't believe that they can do themselves. It's encouraging one another, it's pushing one another further to Christ, further to our goals, further to really where we want to go. And so hopefully by watching this call, by listening to Peyton's story, by hearing the answers to her questions, you feel a little bit more sharpened today. You feel a little bit more encouraged today. And so Peyton is going to start it off and just tell her story. And so Peyton, I'm going to hand it off to you and you can run with it.
Awesome. Hi, as you said, my name is Payton Hinkle. I'm a junior at Oklahoma State University. I run track and cross country here. Currently in track season, about to kick off indoor. Super excited. Like Joe was saying, I am very excited to just talk to you guys about my story. It actually started in middle school. I played soccer and did gymnastics all growing up. And so one day I was running around a track where my sister was having a soccer game, and I saw some hurdles and I begged my mom to do them. And she was like, don't do them. Literally, just don't embarrass me. Don't do anything. Um, and so I was like, okay, cool. So I decided to do them anyway. I did a couple hurdles. And at that time, the middle school cross country coach saw me do them and went over to the parents and essentially was just like, "Whose kid is this?" Like, I wanna know, like, who she is. And my mom so nervously was like, "That's mine, like, I'm so sorry, I claim her." I told her not to do hurdles, but I ended up doing them, and he was like, "No, no, like, I want her on my team, like, I want her to, like, try out." And so it was that day that I was like, "Okay, I've never really heard of cross country, like, that's fun. I'll try it out." And during this time in season of my life, I was having a lot of back pain, so I was going to OU and, like, seeing, doctors and trying to figure out why I was having so much back pain as a 12, 13-year-old girl. And so I actually got diagnosed with this disease called fibromyalgia, which essentially was a disease that messed with like your neural pathways and like your nervous system. And so the time that I was supposed to start cross country, I had to quit all contact sports. So I had to quit soccer, quit gymnastics, and I wasn't allowed to do any physical activity for 6 months. And so I became the cross country manager my seventh grade, sixth grade, seventh grade year. So for this first 6 months of my cross country season, I did nothing but write down names and times. And that was my first time like ever into the running world. Like I didn't grow up in a family where we ran track or cross country, so I was kind of the black sheep in that scenario. But then after 6 months, I got to track season, and I was like, "Hey, I can actually run now. Like, let me see if I'm good at running." And immediately just fell in love with the sport. I knew I liked running because I was in soccer, but I just literally just hit the track and just went running with it. I fell in love with it, and it wasn't until, like, a couple years later that I found out it was a misdiagnosis. So I actually don't have fibromyalgia, but it was kind of a blessing in disguise because if I wasn't diagnosed with that, then I probably would have been playing soccer at a university somewhere, or attempting to stay in gymnastics. So the misdiagnosis was definitely a blessing in disguise because now I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, and I would not have picked a different sport or school. So yeah.
Dang. Holy cow. What so when you were misdiagnosed, was that
Mhm.
when you were in high school?
It was
Or
middle school,
okay,
actually,
middle
yeah.
school, then ended up getting
Mhm.
figured out before you're misdiagnosed. Holy
Yeah.
smoke. What, okay, question that I didn't even tell you I was gonna ask you beforehand, but what
Yeah.
like perspective like it probably
Mhm.
brought? Like, can you talk a little bit about,
Yeah.
like that of, "Hey, I got to see the side of track where, hey, I'm just writing down names and writing down times," to, "Hey,
Yeah.
I actually can run." Like,
Mhm.
what's that, like, perspective change like?
Yeah. I think at first, I remember being, like, devastated. I was, like, 12, 13, and all I wanted to do was play sports. And I grew up in a very competitive household, like, everything was a competition. Like, who could say thank you first, whoever got dinner, like, first. Like, it was, like, very competitive, and, so I think having to sit on the sidelines was kind of, like, building the anticipation of, "I'm so excited to, like, start this," because, I mean, I've been sitting here, like, watching all these kids around me running. So definitely gave me the perspective, like, it just gave me more adrenaline when it came to being able to, like, step on the race or step on the track to race.
Yeah. Dang. Yeah, that's good. I think, gosh, how the littlest things, like in your story, like, "Hey, I'm gonna go check out the hurdles, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
go," turned into, like, "Hey, leading you to where you are now." Like,
Mhm,
you're running at Oklahoma State. Like, that's crazy. Like, the littlest, like, details, the littlest
mhm,
things that we may not even see as a big picture, like, big click moment in our life
mhm.
end up being something that, hey, can change the trajectory of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, looking back, I could see God literally, like, handcrafting every single step as I was, like, growing up. So it's cool, like, seeing how God was, like, working through the diagnosis and now the misdiagnosis, into, like, where I am today. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's sweet. And I know a little bit, here in a couple minutes, we're gonna talk about some of, like, those faith, like, questions, but I wanna
Yeah.
you kinda talked about, hey, what inspired you to start running a little bit? It was kinda like the misdiagnosis and having to sit out, but what led you to Oklahoma State over, like, all the other
Yeah.
universities?
So I actually didn't even look into OSU, like, growing up. I remember sitting down my freshman, sophomore year of high school with my track coaches, and they're like, "Where do you wanna go to college?" And the only thing I said was, "I wanna be near the ocean, on a beach." That's all. That's the only thing I wanted. They're like, "Okay, Peyton, like, we need to be more realistic." So they actually put down OSU for me, and I was like, "No, like, I don't wanna stay in state." Um and it actually ended up being, like, the best case scenario. There's, like, a rule with high schoolers, like, there's a certain day that coaches can contact you, and that first day, Anna Thorpe, one of our coaches here from OSU, she called me, and I remember I was like, "This is my first call ever, like, college, like, I'm nervous," and she was like, "That's awesome, like, that's cool." Um, and so they were actually, like, the first people to take the first step to, like, have contact with me. They came and watched me race throughout the season, and I actually took a couple visits before OSU, and on my OSU visit, I committed. Like, on the visit, I was like, "This is where I'm gonna go," verbally committed, and, like, canceled all my other visits. I was like, "This is it. I know, like, this is where I'm called to be." And I don't know, I mean, it was not even on my radar, and now I can't imagine being at any other college. It's crazy how it turned out.
That is crazy. Did you, so on your first visit, was that, like, super
Mhm.
really early on in the process too, or was that, like, later in?
Kind of. I took all my visits it was senior year, fall semester. I
Okay,
waited not junior year, yeah, I waited senior year to take all my visits.
okay, but that's crazy. Even and again,
Yeah.
back to the thing of how you could just see, like, God piece together, like, every little
Mhm.
like, "Hey, I
Yeah.
don't know, like, this is what's best for
Mhm.
you, what's best."
Yeah.
That's awesome. Talked a little bit about already, like, the defining moment was,
Mhm.
hey, learning that I had a misdiagnosis and I had to run track, otherwise I might have been playing soccer somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, but how has kind of track helped shape, like, who you are today as a person? Like, what has it taught you? Like, what are some of the big lessons that you've learned, um,
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for starters, running is definitely a mental sport. You could be as fast as you want to be, but if you're not in it mentally, you're not gonna be able to compete well. I definitely contribute a lot of like who I am as a woman today, from track and just through my faith. Lots of discipline for sure. Um, I definitely think track has, like, taught me so many lessons along the way too, just how many, like, friends I've made throughout it, as well as there's been runs where I will sit there and just pray out loud. Like, I just need to talk to God, and that's my way of, like, therapy to me. Running is therapy to me, and it's also nice because I can run with a group of people, and then I also can run on my own and have that, like, quiet time in a way. Even though sometimes I know I look crazy, like, running on the side of the road, just, like, talking out loud to God. I definitely have had some comments like, "What is wrong with this girl?" But, I kinda just embrace it, but it's been lots of learning experiences. I mean, I've been doing it for almost half my life now, and I plan on doing it for, honestly, probably the rest of my life, just continually running and using that as, like, my outlet whenever I do get stressed or overwhelmed by things.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I hear you in that too. I think that's it's so good. So much of what we talk about too here
Mhm,
with our athletes is like self-talk. And so like not
mhm.
really like worrying about what people are saying, like, hey, just running down the side of the road. It looks like you're
Yeah.
screaming out loud. Like and
Yeah.
yourself, like, no, that's actually good. Like you said it yourself is like the mental if you're not in it mentally, you're not
Mhm.
gonna be in it. Like you're not gonna
Yeah.
be competing at your fullest, your highest potential.
Mhm.
And so I think that's so good. And then even like what you talk about of, hey, with your faith and everything. And I think that comes so much into one thing we've been talking about for like the last, gosh, couple months here is on a lot of these calls is identity. And
Mhm.
I think, can you just touch on, I know I didn't tell you I was going to, throwing you on the
Yeah.
spot, but can you touch on just identity and how important like
Mhm.
is when it comes to, hey, your sport and life and just
Mhm.
everything in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I think identity can become a very big issue in sports and athletics as a whole, especially when that's majority of your life is training and practice and eating well. I think what's wrong with the NCAA and athletes is when the sport consumes who they are. For me, something that I had to really realize is I am not a runner. Running is just something that I do, and it's a talent that God gave me, and it's something I'm still, like, working through and trying to process, because it is hard. I mean, whenever you have such performance anxiety and performance success, and that's how you base, like, "I'm gonna have a good day because I ran well this weekend," and that can be really difficult to work through, but something that I've really realized is that, again, like, running is not who I am. I'm not a runner. It's just something that adds to my life. Instead, like, I know that I am a follower of Christ. I'm a daughter in Christ. So really just making sure that you like not let it consume who you are as a person and let that like overtake your identity is something that I would say that's very vital to have. Just like a firm foundation in.
Yeah, yeah, that's so good. That's so good. And it even the reality of, hey, it's not a, it's reaffirm what you said if it's not what you do, but it's who you are. And so we need to
Hmm.
own who we are because at the end of the day, a lot of times we can't control the results. Like we can't control
Yeah.
who we're running against, the times that we're going to
Hmm.
be up against, the circumstances, if it's raining, if it's like, and so if you have your identity
Yeah.
or worth wrapped in that, it's
Hmm.
it could all come crumbling down in a span of like seconds. And I mean,
Yeah.
even look at your story, like your injury, right? It's a misdiagnosis, but in
Hmm.
a span of, I mean, I don't know, probably the 5 seconds that it took for the doctor to tell you that you were diagnosed with that, it's like, oh geez, like I can't
Hmm.
play for 6 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's just so good for, I mean, for every person and every athlete to hear just really of, hey, understanding who you are isn't wrapped around what you do. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. One more question on kind of your story, but who has been the most significant influence on your life, both on and off the track?
Yeah, um, most definitely my dad. Like I said before, we were not a track or cross country family. We knew nothing really about the sport other than run fast and you get a gold medal essentially. But once I stepped into track and cross country, my dad did so much research, like had a mile split account, to the point where like he probably could have been my coach at that point. Like he knew like stats and splits of everyone I was racing. Um, and not only, like, the stats and, like, the split side, but also, like, off the track, he's always been just so supportive of me. Every single time I would race, he would send me, like, a good luck text, and it was just so reassuring. He is the loudest person. I mean, any of my teammates or friends, like, growing up, you could hear my dad across the cross country course, and indoor track, like, his voice echoes, like, he's just such, like, a loud and, like, expressive person, as well as just knowing that he's always there for me. He has that, like, tough love in him, which I appreciate so much, but also knowing that, like, he's gonna be hard on me at times because he's my biggest supporter. But yeah, my dad has been probably the most influential person when it comes to track and cross country. It's awesome. He's a great guy.
That is sweet. That's awesome. Just yeah, I can even see it just from a I don't know, the way that you talk about him and the way that you talk about his support. I can just honestly like I can get a picture in my head of like him like, okay, this girl's got this talent,
Yeah.
this good. Okay, she's gonna run this
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
uh,
it's funny.
that's awesome. And support system is just it's everything. I
Mhm,
think I mean, we can go and we can run fast alone, but hey, we can go
mhm,
further together. And so I think just having
mhm,
that support from your dad and your family, I'm sure is
mhm.
incredible. And so, um, kind of going into like the next topic. Okay, that was a little bit more about your story. You talked a lot about your faith, which is like something I love.
Mhm,
We talk about here at 12 too as well. You talked a little bit or touched on briefly like performance anxiety and like the NCAA and identity. There's so many demands like when it comes to
mhm.
being a Division 1 athlete, being a runner like at a huge university. How do you kind of balance your faith and stay grounded in your faith with all the demands, with performance anxiety,
Mhm.
with being pulled in that direction? How do you stay grounded?
Yeah, good question. I think a lot of it has to go back to, like, realizing again, like, the identity and who gave me, like, this ability. I'm, like, very honored and blessed, like, have the platform that I do, but at the end of the day, like, it's not from my own doing. Jesus gave me this platform. He gave me the ability to wake up every day and run. And I kind of contribute back to just the point of having that good accountability partners, or what you were saying earlier, iron sharpens iron. So many of my teammates are also Christ followers. We have Bible studies after practice. We have life groups after dinner. So I think like surrounding yourself by those good Christ-centered athletes as well is so important. As well as just knowing that if I were to wake up tomorrow and not be able to run, know that it's gonna be okay. That's not gonna consume my entire identity that I can't run anymore. Also, a couple months ago, I gave a Bible study about the season of life that you're in, and I relate it back to Ecclesiastes 3, and it says that there's a season for everything. And I'm a firm believer that there is a season for every single thing under the heavens, for mourning, dancing, praising, crying, singing. I definitely think in sports, especially like having that performance success and performance anxiety comes hand in hand with that, because you're going to have days where you're going to have the best day of your life and you're going to PR and run fast, as well as you're going to have the days where you're not going to run fast and you're not going to PR and you're going to fail. So just understanding like that's a part of the plan and the process and God's timing, um, as well as something that I'm really trying to go into this season is seek first the kingdom, and all will be added. Not only just in running, but also in school and my relationships. But going back into running, just understanding where the glory goes at the end of the race, even stepping onto the track, like no matter the outcome, no matter what happens, knowing that I'm doing this to glorify Him, even if it's a national title or if it's just a normal day on the track. Just understanding where my value comes from, and it's not based off my performance or how successful I am or if I fail. Just knowing that, I mean, there, like I said, there are seasons for every single race and part of your life.
Yeah, holy smokes. Holy smokes, that was good.
Sorry, that was a lot thrown
Oh,
at you.
no, that was so good. That was I think we should just end the call, like, we should just crowd like, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's gosh, that's so good, and I think you said so much there of just, okay, leading up to it, like, realizing
Mhm.
there is a season for everything. like
Mhm.
like the good, the bad, the ugly, the twists, the turns, the
Mhm.
ups, downs, everything in between. There's all like nothing's wasted.
Yeah.
And how you said it's not about me. It's about
Mhm.
what can I do to best steward and use the gifts that I have been given. And
Mhm.
in whatever season you end up being in, like, okay, how do you be obedient? How do you maximize the gifts
Mhm.
that you're given in that? And then next of you say seek first the kingdom, like love
Mhm.
love that verse. Like one of my favorite verses
Mhm.
I'm going back to a lot right now too. It just Matthew 6:33 is like, hey, what does it say after
Mhm. Yeah.
first the kingdom and all will be added. And so even
Mhm.
in the midst of, hey, maybe the struggles, the performance anxiety, maybe you're not, maybe you're running track, maybe it's another athlete watching this call who's in another sport doing playing basketball or playing volleyball or stepping into a club sport, and it's, hey, I'm maybe not getting the playing time I deserve, or hey, maybe
Mhm.
teammate is we're having a little disagreement right now on the side, or it's maybe it's just it's one negative thing after another, it seems. And so what does that verse say? What did Peyton just say? She said, hey, it's, hey, seek first the kingdom and all will be added. There's a season for it. Nothing goes unused, nothing goes wasted. And so, yeah, wow, that was really, really good. So yeah, I really just think we could end the call right there, but I kind of want to I keep going too.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
like staying on that faith topic, I know you said, okay, I read a Bible study
Mhm.
in about the seasons and how impactful that has been. And hey, I'm taking seek first the kingdom mindset into this season.
Mhm.
What has been like a constant, hey, when I'm trying to stay grounded, when I'm going into a high pressure meet, a high stress meet, what's one like verse or scripture or just like saying
Mhm.
you always kind of find yourself going back to?
Yeah. So typically the nights before I meditate and kind of like visualize the race. And coming from someone who has performance anxiety, I think of every case scenario. I'm like, okay, what if I fall here? What if this happens or this happens? So trying to visualize and plan it in so many different ways can cause chaos. So I try to meditate and kind of just get all those like negative thoughts out of my head. But I would say probably just, um, understanding, like, a good, like, motto, I guess. Something I used to do when I was running workouts is I'd be like, "I'm strong, I could do this, like, I could do one more rep." And it wasn't until this last season, it's taken me, like, 9, 10 years to figure this out that instead of saying, like, like, I could do this, I could do this," I would sit there and in my head, I'd be like, "Jesus is strong. Jesus, I could do this through you." And there would be times where I'd be doing reps and I'd catch myself being like, "Oh, I could do this." And I'm like, "Wait, no, I can't do this. No, like, Jesus can, like, help me get through it." And I laughed one day because I was running a 10K tempo on the course here at OSU, and out loud, I was like, "Jesus, you tell us to like lean on you and not on our own understanding. Like, I need a crutch. Like, I need I need some help right now getting through it." And I remember saying that out loud, and I felt just like I mean, I was still hurting, don't get me wrong, I still had lactic acid built up, but I felt just, like, a more relief knowing that, like, I'm not alone in this, like, I do have, like, Jesus to, like, help me get through things, especially the mental aspect. I mean, once you have, like, the mindset of, "Oh, I can't do this anymore, I'm, like, on my own," you're pretty much, like, done for, it's hard to come back from, "I'm done, like, I can't." So just, like, understanding that I mean, you're not alone. Like, you can ask Jesus for help to get through workouts or just like that mental aspect has been very, very fruitful for me, which has been nice.
Yeah, yeah. And it's before we hit really on that mental aspect,
Mhm.
I wanna like even say like, hey, Jesus, like I need a crutch. I need you to push me through.
Yeah.
Like that, what it says in scripture too is, hey, his power is made perfect in our weakness. And so in order for his
Mhm.
like come through and for him to lift us and push us through, we need to admit that, hey, I can't do it on my own strength.
Yeah.
And so that was cool to hear of you saying like your mindset went from, hey, I can just do it one more, like one more, I can do it, like one
Mhm.
more through, like just push through Peyton, like you got it,
Yeah.
to no, actually like Jesus, you got it. You
Mhm.
so and I think that takes like a mindset like shift in
Mhm.
it. perspective shift in itself for, hey, me to take a step back so that he can take a step forward through me.
Yeah.
That's that's huge. And so
Mhm.
that really is like it's a lot of it is up here. Yeah, it's in your
Yeah.
head and you need to believe it in your heart and say it, but it starts here. And so just can you just touch a little bit? I know I gave you a couple questions, but we kind of talked a lot about, I mean, I've talked a lot about both of them already. Can you just touch
Yeah.
like the importance again of like the mental game, how it's
Mhm.
impact for you, why you would
Yeah.
encourage an athlete to step into, hey, working on the mental game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think now more than ever, we're seeing so many mental health issues in our generation and in our society. And I know in the NCAA, that is a huge problem that is kind of subsided and looked over. And even not in NCAA, like as high schooler or middle schooler on a club team, like that is a very real issue. Um, but I think going back to understanding what works best for you. For me, I like meditating and journaling and having those like self affirmations and positive affirmations. But that's not the case for everyone. So just understanding like what it is for you. And as cliche as it sounds, something that I would tell an athlete or past me, to pray on it and see like what it is that God is telling you to surrender to Him essentially. Um, because at the end of the day, I mean, you're gonna have those mental battles, but like, how are you going to move through them? Is very important. So I think just asking God for wisdom and figuring out like what it is that God is asking you to surrender to Him. Because there's been so many times where I'm on my knees crying and I'm like, God, like I don't understand. Like, why is this not my season? Like, why am I not hitting the times or racing the way like I need to be racing? And so literally just hitting the floor, surrendering that to God and asking Him what it is that He wants you to do during that season.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And it really goes back, I mean, to full surrender. Like, hey,
Hmm.
what is it in here in my heart, but also in my head that needs
Yeah.
like the switch that needs to be flipped. And
Hmm.
I love how you said it's different for everybody. Just because there is no one size fits all model. Like you said,
Hmm.
the mental game and mental health is such a huge like talk right now across the NCAA,
Mhm,
across society, across the world. And what works for you may not work for me. You know, what works for me may not work for my friend over here and my friend over
mhm,
there and that athlete and this athlete. And so really, like you said, hey, figuring out what is it
mhm,
that does help that does help you. Is it talking to a person? Is it, hey, hitting your knees and talking to God? Or hey, is it reading? Is it journaling? Is it visualizing? Is it meditating? Is it prayer? What is it? Because it can be a handful of different things. And so I think like you just
yeah,
reiterating like what works for you. And so
mhm,
love to hear that. And then one question we always ask everybody who comes on, and
mhm.
kind of just you touched on, I feel like so many good things that you could just kind of just continue to add on to. But what is one like piece of advice, one word of wisdom that you would give to any athlete watching?
I will kinda reiterate what I've already said. Don't let it, like, consume your identity. I think that's, like, a major thing, is just, again, like, knowing this is just something that you do rather than who you are. Um, and also have fun with it. I mean, you're only doing this sport for a certain amount of time. There's gonna be a day where it's your last game or last time on the court or on the track. So just don't take advantage of like the time that you're given and really just press in and enjoy like every moment. Especially the practices where you're on the verge of tears and wanting to quit. Just really press in and be like, wow, this is something I get to wake up and do and just really appreciate it. But main thing is don't let it be your entire identity. And that's still something that I am still learning after 10 years of doing the sport. So it's a process, that's for sure.
It's a process. It's a process. I love it. I love it. That's good. And so lastly, I just want to say thank you again. Thank you again for coming on. Thank you again for sharing your story. Thank you again for answering those questions with just honesty and vulnerability and realness and just letting me and our audience hear like what it is like hey, be in your shoes for a little bit and understand what it's like to be a Division 1 track runner and go through the trials and understand what it's like to have your identity in Christ and to stay grounded and to take heart and go through battle through every season, the good, the bad, the
Mhm.
ugly, the ups, downs, twists, the turns, and then to, hey, like you said, to seek first the kingdom and trust that all will eventually be added in due time, in his perfect time. And so thank you so much just for coming on, for your time, and um, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, 12-2. Be great.